Hello, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set role-based access control, role-based access control for accessing the chatbots. Let's get started. So log on to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, then select the environment. In this case, I'm using one of the test environment. Then I logged on with my global admin account. Plus, this one has Copilot Studio trial license. So if you go to the Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, then click on that user, then go to groups, assigned roles. Now you can see I am the part of global administrator, plus I have some other roles. Now, then in terms of licenses, so this account has Microsoft Copilot Studio Viral Trial Edition. Now, using this account, I'm going to create an agent. But we need to publish that agent. We need to give access to agent to some users. So let's say, for example, you have HR site where everybody have access to this item. Let's say, for example, test1 and test2 user. So what you want to do once you create the chatbot for HR site, HR chatbot, but you want to give access to only to specific people. For example, only for test1. You want to share the chatbot with only test1. But test2 is also having access to the SharePoint site, but test2 doesn't have access to the chatbot. So that's what we are going to create the scenario. So I have already created two more users called test1 and test2. So these users are part of, they don't have any Copilot Studio license. It's just only the Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 just to access the SharePoint sites and then to test it. Then I added them to the HR site. As part of the test, I also created the AD group. So we're not going to use that one. I'm going to create the brand new one. So I was doing the practice for testing that group. So let me take up the members from this group. Then so this group is now redundant. It doesn't have any members. Okay. So now you understood the setup. So basically, we are going to create we are going to use the existing HR SharePoint sites in our chatbot configuration. Then we want to allow access to only to the test user one, allow chatbot test user to no access. Okay, no access to chatbot. But test user 2 has permission in the SharePoint site. So if you open the same SharePoint site, then he can use it. But what he can't access is the chatbot. Right. So now the prerequisites are in place for in place. Then as part of that, another prerequisite is the app registration. So in the app registration, I've already configured the app registration and I will go through the settings. So I've tried with some settings and that did not work. I've added many permissions. Then I'm not sure which setting was helping to work properly, but we will discuss when it comes to the app registration of that configuration. So basically, once you publish the chatbot, then you want to share that URL with the HR chatbot URL with the test1 and test2, and then test whether they're able to access it or not after we configure the role-based access control. Now, So first go to the Copilot Studio, then select the environment. So in my case, agent test or AG test. Then then obviously I logged on with my global admin with that user has Copilot license. You don't need global admin, but I just using the my primary account. Now go to agents, then new agent. Skip to configure. This one we will discuss later. Skip to configure. So I'm just using RBAC RBAC dash HR RBAC test dash HR site. So HR site is a SharePoint site. Then allow test user one, test one user, and do not allow test two user. Okay, this one only for testing purpose. Now, obviously, once you create this, then you need to add a knowledge source. So there are different type of knowledge source. Then in this case, we are going to use a SharePoint. I've already created the SharePoint site. Then have created some. So if I quickly show you, so created some documents also. So I've given access to created some documents, or let me take this as an example, HR version 3. I think this is the one I was using for testing purpose. Let me check. So first what I've done is basically I gave access to test 1, test 2. Can you see test 1 is a member and test 2 is a member. So what I've done is basically I logged on as test 1 in another window, created a folder by test 1. Now you can see the owner and modified. Then logged on as a test 2 account, then created a folder, then added some content here. Okay, so this is a test file, created this. So I put some content here. What is chatbot? Okay, what is the difference between chatbot space something? Okay, so you can have your HR policy document or anything. Okay, so then I created another document with the same. Then test2 folder. Then test2 folder contains like some text in Microsoft Copilot Studio. What is this? Blah blah blah. So we have some data in the SharePoint site. So now copy this URL. Now copy the SharePoint link address. So this is a standard HR, like standard SharePoint site. You can name anything. In this case, I just named it HR site version 3. Then membership, members. Then I added test 1 and test 2. So then I logged on as test 1 in from another browser like Firefox or this. Then open that URL. So let's say for example portal.office.com. Then test 1 at idm.co.uk. Then enter the password. Then say signed in. So now if I get that site URL, copy link address, then give it to the user, then user opens another window. Then you should be able to access the HR site. Then this is how I created the new document. Okay, create the new folder and upload the content. So once this is done, now we need to add that URL into the knowledge base. So go back to the Copilot Studio, then add, remember like we were in this screen, add a knowledge source. So we created the new agent, then we given some description, then knowledge source. Click SharePoint, then give the SharePoint URL, then add, so then create. So now the agent is ready. So now the agent is ready. So to to publish this, basically you can see to test this as a user. I can test it like as a logged on user with the GAN, but I can test it here. Okay, what is Chatbot? So it goes to that document, then it will verify, it will find if there any content is there, then it will reply to you uh, with the reference link also. So it's taking time, sending and is taking time. Maybe the agent is not provisioned, and then sometimes what happens is the index takes time, depends on the number of documents that you have. So now you can see this is a reference document. So this is coming from your SharePoint site, and if you click on that, then it will open as a file. Then just download that file, then open that file. Now you can see this is the content that we have seen before. So now you want to share this chatbot to the users. So you have done it, you have done the configuration, then you have done what are things that you wanted to do. But now you want to share this with the people. So on the top right corner, let me use the mouse highlighter. So on the top right corner, then you can see that demo website is disabled. This is because of this authentication setting. So if you go to the settings of the chatbot, click on security, click authentication. Now the demo site is only available either with no authentication option or authenticate manually. So now for SharePoint site, it must be using the authenticate manually. You can't use you can't even use this. Okay, authenticate with Microsoft. So for when you're using this authenticate manually, because the SharePoint site definitely requires a user to sign on. Therefore, by default, it creates this redirect URL. Then you need to create an app registration. Then enter the client ID, client secret. Then there are some scopes that you need to add it. So what I've done is previously I've already added, I've already created a enterprise app registration. So if I go to app registrations, so I can quickly show you. So new app registration, then enter the name, then you enter this web, and then enter the details here. So I will quickly use the existing one. The one I created is a app. I just named as app res dash chatbot HR site manual authentication. Whatever the naming standard that your company follows, then use that. Because I'm testing it and I want very clear naming standard while I'm doing the testing. Now, if you click on the first the branding properties, this is fine if you want to add any logo or anything. The next one is the authentication. So by default, Microsoft has given you the option to just only to add. And how do I get this link? So you get that link from when you use this security here. Then you can see this is a copy. Then I pasted into this. I had some issues with the app registration and I was troubleshooting it. And like one of the article, it says like add europe.token.botframework.com blah blah blah. Because I live in Europe, then I added this. I think for US, I think there is another URL. So I just wanted to test with this. Then I also added this. I did not get a chance to fine tune the settings, which one has affect, what is a least minimized permissions that are required for app registration. At this point of time, I may have given some additional rights. So then access token is enabled, then ID token, and this one is any organization, including the personal accounts that I have selected, like Skype and Outlook.com. Those accounts also can be accessed. But when you're using Outlook.com or Gmail.com accounts, it needs to invite as a external guest user, otherwise it won't work. So these are the standard settings that I did not just a standard settings. Then you create a secret. So secret is nothing but a password. So once this is gone, then once you create it, once you are away from the screen, and this value become star. So but I've taken this secret in one of like in my notepad, so I do have the details of this value. The main thing is basically in token configuration, there's nothing we configured here. In API permissions, so I've gone through the Microsoft documentation and some other articles, but basically they have said like only give only few permissions, but it did not work. So basically, what the aim is, we want to share this chatbot with the users. So as a user, like you create the chatbot, then you test it here, it works fine. But what is the point if you are not able to share with the users? So then I gone through some of the things. So for example, email, just to view the email address of that application, have the permission to read that email. Files.read, then read the user files, then files.read.all. There are some settings that may not be required, but I have added at this point of time. So because as I said, like I was testing, I've tried with different options that did not work, but with this combination, it did work. So then I also did the expose an API. I'm not sure whether I need to do expose API at this point of time, but I've already exposed the API. Then usually what you do is like click on add scope, then enter that, for example, files.read.all. So the scope name that you can get it from the from the API permissions. So in my case, I've added files.read, files.read.all, for sites means the SharePoint sites. Then these are the things that I added as an exposure. So then no app roles, nothing really. Then no owner, then roles and administration. By default, I think you'll get by default this one. Then this is a manifest of the JSON format. Right. So this is the app registration that we are going to use. So app registration, you need the application ID or client ID. So application ID is 801, starting with this, then copy, then go to our chatbot. Then this is a application ID or client ID, both are same. Then secret, a secret is nothing but your password. Okay, the secret of this. So then by default you have this profile scopes, and the tenant ID you can't change it. Profile open ID, then followed by you need to add files.read. What I've done is basically I put everything into the notepad. Let me copy paste them. This. So so profile open ID, files.read, files.read.all, site.read, all these things I have taken from this API permissions here. Can you see files.read, files.read.all? So whatever that makes sense to me, then I have used these ones. Okay, then click save. Why we are doing this? If you want to share a chatbot with the user, and the knowledge source is configured as a SharePoint site, it must be manually authenticated. For this, we need a app registration with some permissions, so that a user can sign into the chatbot, and then I can access the data. And if the user does not have access in the SharePoint site, even though he has access to the chatbot, but not underlying a SharePoint site, then the results are no. So we are going to do the testing. So now we have set up this authentication. So far what we have done is we have created the agent. We have selected the security as authenticated manually. Then we have chosen this app registration details. Then we have enabled the scopes. And when we are creating the agent, then we use the SharePoint site as a knowledge source. On the SharePoint site, there are the two users, test1 and test2. They both have access to the SharePoint site, and there is some data in the SharePoint site. So now the next step is to give the permission to this users. So now once this is done, so generally what you do is basically on the agent right click, then share, then share with a particular user called test1 in this case, for example. But in the companies, how many users are you going to add like this? So this is not a best practice. So basically, we use a Active Directory group, Azure AD group, then to give the permissions here. So if I go to the groups here, so this one maybe need to be done by your IAM team. So if I go to Microsoft Entra ID, then groups, then create a new group, security group. The type of is the security group. Then this is for RBAC test, then version 2. Give the meaningful name, then this one, then members. Who is a member of this you? So I'm only giving access to test1, but not giving the access to test2. So then generally is a better practice, is a best practice to give owner name, then create. So now test1 is a member of this RBAC group. So now copy this group name. Now go to the agent Copilot Studio. Instead of using the username, now we are going to use the group name. So who has access to this group? In this group, you have that user called test1. Then share. So now there are two things are happened here. So permissions are required 10 minutes to see the shared agent. It may require 10 minutes to see. Remember, Azure is not instantaneous. Okay, so you may need to wait for the time. So once you have done that, because you changed the authentication to manual, now you can see there is something is called go to demo site. If the security setting is the Microsoft authenticated, then you will not be able to see that option is grayed out. If you select this, then that option is grayed out. So once this is done, now because you have done the setting changes and all, then I would say like publish. Once the agent is published, once you change any security settings, then it's better to publish. But you're not pushed to the users yet. Okay, so you can push this agent to the users different various channels. That we will discuss in another topic. So now in the Firefox window, previously the test1 user is already logged on. So now if I do the refresh here, because you have selected authenticated manually, now you got this login button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Go demo website. So here when you click on login, then you can enter the test1 account. Because I logged on with the GAN account here, I don't want single sign on to appear because it's taking time. Then publish again. As I said, like it will take as they said, like it will take up to 10 minutes, and sometimes it's faster. So and click on demo site. So copy this URL meanwhile, then go to your Firefox window, then paste here. Remember you logged on as a test1 account here, and the test1 is part of that AD group, and then you click here login. If you're not logged on, then you won't get straight away this copy button. You'll get authentication. Please enter your username and password. And once you get this, like it's like a OTP or your this thing, then enter, then click send button. Now you can see, hello, I am RBAC to test HR site. Then you get that content. Say, hi, what is chat space bot? Oh, sorry. So A chatbot is referred to as blah blah blah. Then you got this content from the content from this your SharePoint site URL. And if you look at the bottom left corner, then you should be able to see the you should be able to see the SharePoint site and then the whole folder path, okay, or copy link. Then you can see that URL and what is that document, where it is coming from. So now we will log in as a test2 user. Remember, test2 user does not have access. So I'm just logging off from here, then sign out. Then close this window, then again open Firefox or another browser. The reason is I don't want to use the same browser. Um, it will because it will use the single sign-on. Okay, so this time I'm just going to the portal.office.com, then test2 at ittab.co.uk. Is there any necessity to log on to portal.office.com? No, but I'm just saying, like generally in the company, people are already logged on with this account in your seamless browser, single sign-on authentication. So now get that URL. So this one in this browser is still showing as loading. This may be cache issue because I've been testing multiple times, but you can see now it is works here. Then copy this URL in the Firefox window. You can use a Google Chrome or any other this. So in the Google Chrome, I'm using my agent with the GAN account. So therefore, if I click on here, it'll ask me what is it has taken automatically my logged on single sign-on credentials. So therefore, but we can't test it as a test1 user here. So for that reason, then I'm using this different browser. It took almost 30 seconds to 1 minute to show here in that this, but sometimes it's very fast. So click on login. Because you already logged on, then you get the copy code, then go to here, then paste, then login. Oh, oopsie, send it. So now I should expect error. You don't have access to talk to the chatbot now and contact the owner. But if I go to the SharePoint site, go to the active site, then get the copy as link address, then open this. So this is a source SharePoint site that we have used in the as a knowledge source in the agent. Now remember, now see that user test2 user. If you look at on top right, test2 user is able to access the files and then modify the files. So, but he doesn't have access to the chatbot because he is not part of. He doesn't have the rights, or it is not shared with him. So now, if we go back to our Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, then go to members of that group. Now I'm going to add test2, then select, then refresh here. Yep, you can see test2 is added to RBAC test2. Now you don't need to do anything in the agent configuration, because now in the agent you don't need to do anything here because in the share is already shared. Okay, so if you go back to this user, it's just refresh it. It's a bit slow today. The refresh took a little while. Then I pressed the Control F5. Then immediately I haven't done anything. It came automatically as you have access to this chatbot. Now if you type this all depends on what type of documentation that you have put it in our SharePoint. So in the SharePoint site, I've just put some test document and what is Chatbot. So now you know how to give access to the user using the AD group, which is a role-based access control groups. Now I'm going to remove the user 2 from the members, then remove, then S, then refresh. So now if I go to here, then press Control F5 or Control refresh, then close this one. So the removing is still not affected. So it may take a while to apply the to replicate those changes. Otherwise, just to log off and log in back and then see whether that fixes the problem or not. Again, in on-prem, everything is instantaneous, but when compared to on-prem and Azure, Azure is not instantaneous. We need to have a little bit patience. So I closed and reopened this demo site, then click on login. Then I got the copy code. Then click enter the message here. Then send. I should get the message. You don't have access to the chatbot now. So this is how you can use AD groups for sharing the chatbot with the users. This is how you can control it. Even though the person has access to the SharePoint, but he doesn't have access to the chatbot, then he cannot use the chatbot. I hope this is useful. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you. Bye bye.